God here, and welcome to the Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is week number 5 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba in Northern California, and I know, Brad, that we are super excited about our top 10 games worth picking, worth actually spending some money on. We're going to get into those games in just a little bit. But first, Brad, I think it's important that we tell the audience, as I sit here wearing a Minnesota North Star hat, to say that we will not be picking the Detroit Lions Minnesota Viking game this weekend for a wide variety of reasons.
That's right. And you know what? Here, Dave, I went a couple minutes ago. I saw you wearing your hat. So I had to one-up you with this North Star's cap. How's that, people? I'm not going to wear this throughout because it's way too small for my head. But it's a good opportunity for us to talk Minnesota sports and the Vikings right off the bat. You know, I couldn't see myself picking this game this week, Dave. I mean, is there two more unpredictable football teams on the planet than the Vikings and the Lions? I mean, really, the Lions seemingly play well for 2.5 quarters every week. And the Vikings defense shows up for about 1.5 every week. And then all of a sudden the defense played pretty well last week and the offense just goes non-existent. And it's a big week, I think, for the Vikings. I think they have to win this game. If not, you could see the buzz already starting in Minneapolis on the Mike Zimmer watch and the Rick Spielman watch. I've heard that one before too.
Wow.
But the Vikings there, they got to win this game.
Yeah, I would say, you've heard me say this a lot. Dan Campbell, lots of heart, I don't care how much freaking heart you have. If you don't get a win occasionally, it's just not going to matter. I've gone from, talking about all their heart to making excuses for the Detroit Lions. Like I last week, I think I said they're the best 0-3 football team in football. This week I'm like, they're the best 0-4 football team in football. Like they're bound to get a win. And when you look at this, at the spread also, because I think this was like a crazy spread, Brad. I think it was like 9.5 points for the Vikings to win this game. And I'm like, have they not paid attention? This was a sucker pick to me. Because, have they not paid attention to the Viking defense or lack of Viking defense? They lost last week to the Cleveland Browns, which didn't surprise me that they lost. What surprised me, though, was actually how bad Baker Mayfield actually played. First time all season, I've really sat down and watched an entire Baker Mayfield game. And, Brad, I mean, he was Jared Goff at times. He was missing people by 10 yards, 10 yards to the left, 10 yards to the right, 10 yards over his head. It was, I'm not saying Mayfield's the worst quarterback in the National Football League, but man, if they didn't have a running game, the Cleveland Browns would be an absolute disaster on the offensive side of the ball.
No question about it. It's, but they can run the ball and they're all about tempo. And if they get the lead on you, they're going to take the air out of the ball. They're going to run it. And that's just kind of been the formula for the last year and 4 weeks now. And, they're pretty good at running the football. Their defense is pretty tight. And it's almost as if they're playing, hoping that Mayfield somewhere along the ways doesn't screw things up for them. Anyways, I'm going to get into my first game talking about teams that screw things up. I'm going to get right into it, Dave. I had to pick this one. I had to pick the Jets against Atlanta. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that game is in London, correct?
Oh, yeah. Get your bets in early, North America. That's a 9:30 a.m. Start time.
Yeah, well, the Falcons are a 3-point favorite, and it's it's kind of hard to figure out which of these teams is worse, but the Jets actually won a game last week, which I have no idea how. I picked against them, and of course they picked their only week to win. By the way, I had a bad week last week, and I'm trying to get over that. It's been mentally draining on me. And as Dave may have noticed, I waited a long time to get into my picks this week because I felt like I had been on a roll in week 2 and week 3. I was rolling, and all of a sudden I got a little too excited, and I made my picks too early, and I got kind of full of myself, and I didn't do my homework and all that kind of stuff. Well, now we have the Jets against Atlanta. And, well, the biggest news here, Dave, is that the 2 top receivers for Atlanta did not make the trip to London. So they are really hurting at wide receiver. And I, Matt Ryan's not a guy that thinks on his feet real quick. The Jets are coming in hot after winning their one game. And they are a 3-point dog. I'm taking the Jets, Dave.
Wow. You have the green from that Minnesota North Star hat has obviously seeped into your brain on this one. I have to say, Atlanta has Atlanta won a game, Brad?
I don't care about Atlanta.
No, but
so I don't know.
No, I don't think so. They're 0-4, and yet they're favored. After the New York Jets beat the Tennessee Titans, I don't know. Yeah, I looked at this game and I thought, okay, this Falcon team is improving. They've been slowly improving week over week. Zach Wilson, is not getting the kind of protection he's going to need. I look at this. It's it's a game in London. This is where I'm playing the experience card on this one, which I really hate playing. But I'm gonna play the experience of one of your favorite quarterbacks in the National Football. I know that somewhere in your garage is a Matt Ryan poster. I'm looking at this game and I think the Falcons, they're better on paper and they're better on the field as well. I see you being incorrect about this one.
No Calvin Ridley, no Russell Gage. Their number 1 wide receiver in this game, Dave, is a guy I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I think it's Olamide Zaccheaus.
I think everybody in America is impressed you knew who their top 2 wide receivers were.
Exactly, but no Ridley, no Gage. I just say no chance of a lot of points. It's going to be, I think, a busy day for their kicker, Younghoe Koo. But here's my thought on it, Dave. For the first time ever, I'm going to pick based on the team that's going to have the less jet lag. And the Jets are younger, so I'm going with the young kids as they get off the jet. The Jets taking the jet. That's right. Go with the Jets.
There you go. Do you think the entire continent of Europe is like, please stop sending us these trash games? Can you why don't they get like the Cowboy Buccaneer game? Like a Rams versus Charger game. Like all we do is we dispense bad games into Europe a couple times a year. Do you think the people in Europe even care?
In addition to it's kind of puzzling because it's the NFL's attempt at trying to have some sort of global marketing and expanding the game overseas and giving the people a good product so that they can someday maybe want to have a team in London. I mean, there's been all that talk for a long, long time. And then you send them like 2 of the worst team in the league over to there go and play. Maybe their feeling is that the people over there just don't know enough about the game and they just love it so much that they'll go watch anybody. But, there's a good chance that these teams will score less points than 2 soccer teams at Wembley Stadium on any given Saturday, right?
Right. I mean, it's ridiculous. Like if you're a company and you're trying to sell product into a new region or a new country or something like that. Let's say you were Nike and you are trying to make inroads into Europe. you would, of course, send your best products over. You'd send all the Michael Jordan gear you could get into Europe. You wouldn't be sending, the things nobody cares about over into Europe. You'd be sending all the MJ stuff you could possibly get your hands on to make inroads into that county. So I'm not really sure what's going on with the NFL. But real quick, Brad, we're going to move on to my first game, which I think is going to be a super easy game for both of us to pick. And that is the Green Bay Packers at the surprising the Cincinnati. I had to do dramatic there. Cincinnati Bengals, as Joe Burrow is looking like a slightly better than middle of the road quarterback. Joe Burrow, I believe, has what it takes. It's going to take to be a really, really good quarterback in the National Football League. I've been very impressed by him in his sophomore campaign. The Bengals offensive line playing a little bit better than last year, though I still don't think that they've really played anybody that great yet. This to me looks like a shootout that if you give me Aaron Rodgers and all of those other weapons that he has, I'm willing to give up some points, and I'm going with the Packers in this one.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you here. I think I was a little surprised this line was as low as it was. I think it's just
3 points.
I think it's just based on the fact that the Bengals are 3-1 out of the gate. But when you look at who the Bengals have played, they beat the Vikings in overtime. They lost to the Bears. They beat a Steelers team that I think we would both agree is not very good right now. And then they beat a Jaguars team that is a total mess. And so the Packers have seemingly turned it around since that week 1 debacle, and they seem to be kind of catching their stride a little bit. I find it hard to believe that Cincinnati is going to be able to match the Packers point for point. I'm with you. I took the Packers. I gave the 3.
One of my favorite pieces of we should do a segment called This Week in Controversy. One of my favorite controversial things that popped up so far this week was good old Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. Love the Pat McAfee show if you haven't watched it on YouTube or listened to it. But he does the weekly interview with Aaron Rodgers, and so they asked him. They said, "Aaron, what do you think about Mike Tomlin?" so what's obviously Big Ben Roethlisberger is, like I said last week, might actually have to retire at halftime of a game. I mean, that's where we're at this point with Big Ben. No disrespect. I mean, I loved him as a quarterback. He's just obviously at the end, and so it's like all this stuff popped up about how so Aaron Rodgers obviously said what I would say and you would probably say about Mike Tomlin, really positive things about him. And so that's what Aaron Rodgers said. And then there's all these rumors and controversy that Aaron Rodgers wants to leave Green Bay and go to Pittsburgh. And then I saw somebody on a Fox show. I'm not going to say who on a Fox show, just discounting one very important thing. He talks about how Aaron Rodgers loves Mike Tomlin and how great Mike Tomlin is and how the players all love Mike Tomlin and how great it would be to see Aaron Rodgers, drop back to pass in Pittsburgh. And he goes, it's like a dream made in heaven, basically, is what this guy's saying. And he forgot one very important thing, Brad. And that is the fact that I think we would agree that the worst offensive line in all of football in pass protection right now is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And there is no sign of it getting better. As good as an organization as Pittsburgh is, they have misstepped poorly on that offensive line. And it usually takes 2 or 3 years to recover, to put together some sort of new offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I said in week 1 when it came to fantasy football picks. Everybody was so, geeked about picking the new running back for Pittsburgh, Najee Harris. And I said, yeah, but there's somebody that's going to block for him. I mean, he could be great. He can be the greatest of all time. You got nobody blocking, and you're just going to be another guy. So, anyways, I'm going to go on to two.
Sorry, Brad. I was going to say, and I didn't listen to you, and I started Najee Harris, which was a huge mistake. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go to two more bad football teams because I've been very busy this week, Dave.
Yeah.
I've been miserably busy. I just want to go with other misery. Misery loves company, and
That's
so
right.
the Tennessee Titans are at the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Oh.
Holy cow! I mean, what a week it's been for Urban Meyer and company, right? And so Tennessee could not have looked a lot worse last week. Of course, they didn't have A.J. Brown and they didn't have Julio Jones. There's a rumor that those two guys are kind of making their way back. They might play a little bit this week. There hasn't been any final decision on that. But the Titans are a 4-point favorite at Jacksonville. And I look at Jacksonville as a team that they're in self-destruct mode. I mean, that is a team that can look good, and then just they go through periods of 10 minutes where things just completely get away from them. And I've got to believe that the whole Urban Meyer thing has got to be a massive distraction. It'd be one thing if you had a veteran leader on that team, but they got a quarterback that's in his first year. He's the captain of the team. How does he know how to handle stuff like this? I think it's a bad situation in Jacksonville. I think it's going to be a short tenure for Urban Meyer, and I think Tennessee goes in. I give up the 4 points, and I take the Titans.
It's sort of like what happens first? Big Ben retires or Urban Myers is out for whatever reason. Yeah. Speaking of controversy of the week, I mean, that whole thing where the coach doesn't fly back with his team never happens in the National Football League. It's something that will occasionally happen for recruiting reasons in college football, but in the National Football League, it never happens unless there's a health issue with a family member. Just go for it.
I heard one of the greatest excuses this week in favor of Urban Meyer because he had to visit his own. It was his own establishment that he was at, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, have you not seen it before? Was it really that big of a need that you had to be there? You own the damn place. You don't need to be there.
I mean, look, this isn't the 1970s where he had to stop by and sign some checks.
Right.
It's like Urban, you can do everything through Square. I mean, like you can pay people's bills off of your phone, man. Obviously, and then the video and all this stuff comes out. It's just like it's like one mistake after another. So then he makes all the mistakes, and then he goes back and and so the video comes out, and then he tells the press the next day that he sat down with the entire team when he hadn't sat down with the entire team. He had only met with leaders in the team. It's just Urban Myers cannot be trusted. The best thing for Urban Myers to do is to call up the Fox executives and see if he can still get his Saturday gig back. It is not going to end well there. I was so tempted, Brad, of all of our games this week, when I thought, where will I potentially flip-flop on a game? And I was so tempted to flip-flop on this Jags Titans game, not so much because of all of the all the things. Like I feel like the Jaguars are actually improving. I don't know if this off the field stuff's gonna have a toll on the team this week. I can only imagine that it will. But this Tennessee Titans team is just not that good. They're just not that good. And so when I really sat down and I was like, okay, I'm really thinking about going with Trevor Lawrence in this game, it came down to one thing, and that was nobody is going to be able to stop Derek Henry in Jacksonville. They don't really need to do Ryan Tannehill does not need to drop back to pass more than 17 times in this game, if you know what I mean. Like this is as last week should have been for the Tennessee Titans. This should be an easy win for the Titans. I'm not flipping and I'm sticking with Tennessee.
Yeah, and one final note on that before you get to your next game on Urban Meyer. Is he really signed on to be a coach? He doesn't wear a headset on the sidelines. He doesn't even want to travel with the team. I mean, the whole thing just seems like a complete mirage and a money grab, does it not?
Total. It seems like a total money grab. Is he really like not wearing a headset?
Yeah, I've seen him on the sidelines. He's not even wearing a headset. He's just standing there. He bends over and puts his hands on his knees, and it's like, you are a coach, right? You're not the equipment guy. I'm missing something.
Maybe he really was going back to his restaurant to sign checks. Maybe it was like he had to put some cash in some envelopes to pay some people off. Maybe it still is the 1970s in Urban Meyer's world. Even in the 70s, coaches had headsets, Brad. That is just absolutely, you're right. Yeah, like how disconnected can you be? All right. Speaking of just confused and disconnected, and I just don't even know what to say anymore. The Chicago Bears at the Las Vegas Raiders. The Raiders are, of course, favored by 5.5 in this one. Justin Fields is now going to be the starter for the rest of the year, according to Matt Nagy. That might have changed since we started recording this podcast on Thursday. It is Thursday, Pacific Standard Time at 3:41, just so everybody knows. At that very time, Justin Fields is your Chicago Bears starting quarterback for the rest of the year, which I think he absolutely should be. They have an issue with the Bears where David Montgomery is out. There's some other injuries on both sides of the ball. I thought that the Raiders played really well in the second half of their game. I was texting Brad, who I knew was already upset about his picks from last week. That I thought the Raiders were fun to watch. I think I texted you that, Brad. It's like, Brad, the Raiders are fun to watch, as my pick of the Chargers was beating his Raiders last week. That being said, I am going with the Las Vegas Raiders this week. Lots of reasons to still like what the Raiders are doing on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you here. I think we agree about half the time this week. Chicago has got personnel problems. They're not very good up front. Now they don't have Montgomery, who I think is maybe the most reliable guy in the offense that they have. And so there's obviously going to be the element of surprise, like who the hell's going to get the ball, right?
Right.
But I think the Raiders, and I don't think the Raiders are a great football team. I think they're a good football team that very easily, Dave, could be 0-4.
Yeah.
But they're 3-1, and they've played well at times, and they are more exciting to watch. Henry Ruggs, I think, has developed very nicely as a wide receiver. Obviously, Darren Waller is a great player, and Josh Jacobs is starting to get healthy from his toe injury. But what the Raiders do well is they do well at putting pressure on the quarterback. And you've got a young kid over there playing quarterback for the Bears, and they're going to bring the house at him on every single play. And the Raiders are aggressive defensively. I think you're going to see some turnovers. I think it gets lopsided by the end. I'm taking the Raiders and giving the 5.5.
Yeah, we could so totally be having the 6 more years of Gruden as a head coach. When is Mike Mayock being fired? We could easily be having that conversation right now about this Raider team. But I do want to, the Vikes are 1-3, and they deserved to lose the game to the Cleveland Browns. They deserved to lose that game against the Cardinals. I'm sorry. I saw I was there in person. Yes, they were lucky to have a chance to actually win that game. So I think, even if these teams look good on paper or better on paper than they actually perform, but with this, this Raider team, I like Gruden. I like what Derek Carr is selling right now. Yeah, I would buy some Girl Scout cookies if Derek Carr came to the door. I like the whole attitude. I love the fact that they're in Vegas. I love the fact that they went to Los Angeles. The stat came out. 77% of the fans at SoFi Stadium were Raider fans. The Chargers are playing 17 17 away games this year. I'm just saying. Anyways, Brad, I'll let you move on to your next one.
Okay, so we got another guy that you're in love with, Bill Belichick, and his Patriots are at the Texans this week. And, I don't think a whole lot was resolved between the Belichick-Brady thing other than the fact that Brady won. I think it was kind of a toss-up. I mean, I thought I was really surprised the Patriots were still in it at the end.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the Buccaneers did just enough to win the game, just like I think most people figured they would. And so I don't think anybody was declared a genius over the other. But I think one thing that's become abundantly clear with the Patriots is that offensively, they're not very good. And so they're going to the Texans. And I look at this game as 9.5 points. I don't think the Patriots are good to be favored by 9.5 over just about anybody. And I certainly don't think the Texans are a good team. But they are playing at home. The Patriots are coming off a loss that hurt. I'm going to take the Texans. I'll take those 9.5, but I'm not thrilled about it. But I'm going to take the Texans.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that I hate that you picked. For a wide variety of reasons. As of right now, and I won't change it in our gods of odds. I'm going with the Patriots. But like, if I knew Tyrod Taylor was playing, I would not be. If I could be guaranteed Tyrod Taylor would be healthy for 3 out of 4 quarters of this football game, I would not be going with the Texans in this game. Look, nobody throws the screen pass like Mac Jones. Yeah. 19 completions in a row. And the thing that everybody failed to even mention is like, none of them were beyond 20 yards. This is like, I can make short completion passes even at my age, Brad.
I mean, I thought Mac Jones played okay. They didn't ask him to do a whole lot. And, but that's kind of what you expect out of the Patriots. And, but at the end of the day, they really couldn't run the ball very effectively. And Mac Jones still doesn't really have a whole lot of targets downfield to make any big plays with. That's why I took the Texans. I just thought 9.5 was a lot of points.
It is a lot of points, but I don't know, something just, like, as I mentioned, if, Davis Mills is your starting quarterback and going up against Belichick. I could see a shutout or like no points being scored in this game, 3 points being scored in this game, by it. So that's why Vegas is set this way they set it. I gotta go with the Patriots in this. Real quick, all week I've been giving my friends in Boston a hard time. I've got a sort of a series of people I know in Boston that I've sort of collected, Brad, in the last 20 years. And I'm like, okay, so like, what does a guy have to do? Like, how many Super Bowls would it have taken for you to actually stop the game and give a presentation to your former quarterback as he sets the NFL record for most yards in the history of the national? This isn't like some stupid award. This is like the award that you can give a quarterback, and they don't even they disrespect Tom Brady so much. And the other side of it as well, and a friend of mine was like, well, he's not on the team anymore and all this stuff. And I was like, yeah, but like, it could have been bitter Bill Belichick. Try saying that 10 times. It could have been bitter Bill Belichick just trying to slow the game down a little bit, just disrupt Tom Brady. Bring out Naughty by Nature. Have them do the halftime show. I'm just saying, Brad, just like, what did he need to win? 10 rings for the Patriots to stop a game against their former great quarterback to give him the award for the most passing yards in the history of the National Football League? I do not understand.
He's been a pretty good player, has he not? All right, go on to your next one.
All right. Moving on to the next game. he's not what is the line from Major League? He's not the best color man in baseball for nothing. All right, San Francisco at the Cardinals. I believe this is a game we actually disagree on. Cardinals at home, 5.5-point favorite. I am sitting here in the Silicon Valley. I can tell you that injuries are mounting. I really like this Arizona Cardinal football team. We obviously saw what they did last week to the Rams, who were still, I think, just riding a little high from their previous week and got caught sleeping. The 49ers will not get caught sleeping in this game. But I will say this, Cliff Kingsbury and the rest of this team seems to be coming together. Maybe it's the wrong time of the year for them to be peaking, but they seem to be peaking at this point in the National Football League. I feel really, really confident about taking the Cardinals and not the Niners in this game, especially when you actually go down the depth chart of the Niners and you check the boxes of who's actually hurt.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals are a better football team right now. Obviously, that was a spectacular game that they played last week. I did not see that coming. That was one of those games that I got wrong. And they were impressive, much like the Rams were impressive the week before.
Yeah.
But that was then, and this is now. And sorry, see how I switched it up on you there, Dave?
Sage wisdom.
Right. So, right, exactly. But it's a 5.5-point game. And I think the Niners are still a good football team. These two teams know each other really well. And I just thought for a divisional game, 5.5 points was a little bit too much for my liking. I can see a natural letdown coming from the Cardinals. At some point, the whole tent is going to collapse. I'm going to say, I don't know that it's going to collapse this week for the Cardinals, but I do like the Niners in the 5.5.
We sound like professional gamblers. The hook, that extra hook is what really scared me on this game. But I decided to roll the dice nonetheless with the Cardinals.
All right, let's get into some good football teams. All right, enough of that nonsense. The Rams are at the Seahawks, and for all intents and purposes, it's a pretty big game for both these teams if they want to keep pace with the Cardinals and that kind of thing. And the Rams obviously smarting after losing to Arizona. But I'm not playing the game. I'm playing the over-under, which sits at 54.5. I think the Rams defense was embarrassed last week. And much like I said, I think a couple of weeks ago, Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray are very, very similar players. So I think the Rams have a good idea of what Russell Wilson's going to do. I think that they will take this game personally. I don't believe it's going to be as high a scoring affair as people think. And I'm going to take the under at 54.5.
Yeah, I agree with most of that. Both of these teams could easily score. I mean, this game, it's Thursday night. You haven't had a lot of time to prepare. But I just I could see the Rams scoring 30 points and I could see the Seahawks scoring 17. It's like I just it's too scary of a number for me to go with the over in this game.
Especially when you have those kind of defenses. I mean, you've got the potential, the Rams obviously have a great defense. It didn't really show up last week, but I think the Cardinals are kind of special in what they do offensively. But even the Seahawks from time to time, they've got some pretty good old sage veterans back there, whether it's Adams or I forget the other guy, the linebacker that I'm forgetting his name, but they've got some guys there. And I still think, as I said earlier in the year, I still don't like this East-West stuff that the Rams try to do. And I saw them trying to do way too much East-West stuff. I need to see some more of those lob passes downfield for Deshaun Jackson. That's, to me, where the Rams caught my eyes. And then last week, they kind of got back to this stuff across the middle and these, little timing patterns and slant patterns. I need to see them stretch the field a little bit. And so I just think that this is a potential for a lower scoring game because I see them falling back into their old patterns.
I was like, hey, let me help you out here, Brad. Don't be fooled by Deshaun Jackson stretching the field for an entire National Football League season. Yeah, yes, it's like one of those great things that happens, once a season, maybe twice a season. He was probably hurt, and they just didn't say anything about it. Like there probably was a reason there. I agree about the East-West piece of it, and I see it not just with the Rams, but with other teams in the national. It kills me sometimes. I'm like, that was the best lateral run I've seen all week.
Where's Robert Woods been?
Yeah, he's disappeared entirely.
I'm seeing way too much Cooper Kupp and not enough Robert Woods. They need to start spreading the ball around a little bit.
Yeah, because it got really easy to sort of hone in on things there. I don't know anything about the weather, what the weather's actually going to be like up in Seattle, but this game is literally we're an hour and 20 minutes away from kickoff as we're doing this broadcast. So I'm with you, Brad. I'm going with the under as well. Moving on. Let's see here, Mr. Hoysef. Oh gosh, this is going to be just a fun stat for you, Brad. 2,000 yards passing, 400 yards rushing in his first 8 games. The stat would have been better if it was in the first 7.5 games. You gotta love the statistics that are out there. Jalen Hurts, first guy to do that since 1950. Don't ask me who did it in 1950. I'm not going to answer that.
Sammy Baugh. I don't know.
We couldn't have given this stat the week before. He hadn't pulled it off through 7, but he pulled it off through 8. So you got the Philadelphia Eagles heading into Carolina against the Carolina Panthers. I've heard some rumors that a certain running back may or may not be back. For all of you fantasy folks out there that took Christian McCaffrey with your number 1 pick in your draft and you fell for it yet again, I'm just saying. That being said, Matt Rule, really like what he's selling. Really like, I love more of what Matt Rule is selling than the Raiders are. I feel like there's more substance on this defense. It's a younger group of players. I see this team improving even in their losses. They didn't just phone it in last week. They did sort of make things interesting. I even got a text from one Mr. Brad Hoysef about Sam Darnold's running ability. I don't even want to talk.
Leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns, Dave.
I took a lot of heat online a couple weeks ago for making fun of Sam Darnold. I'm not gonna touch it again. But I actually believe that this Carolina team is definitely worth taking in this game, and I feel really strongly about it. I haven't seen enough of the Philadelphia Eagles yet to justify going out on a limb on the road with the Philadelphia Eagles at this. It's not in Philadelphia.
They talk about all the great running back quarterbacks in football and Kyler Murray and the guy in Baltimore and you name it up and down the line. Who knew?
Lamar Jackson gets no love.
Lamar Jackson.
I need to make sure we give Lamar Jackson lots of love. He deserves it.
But it's Sam Darnold that leads the NFL in rushing touchdowns versus Jalen Hurts. We might have the 2 best guys in the league right here, Dave. Right? I mean, come on. Sam Darnold's a great running quarterback now, right? No. It's a 3.5 point line. That's where you and I differ. You got the Panthers. I don't like that 0.5 point. The Panthers offense, despite Darnold's, if Sam Darnold's leading you in touchdowns, what does that tell you about the rest of the team?
I mean, just it tells you that, everybody's number one fantasy football player got injured. So
precisely. And so I still think that they're limited offensively. I think the Eagles still do play pretty tough defensively. I don't like the 3.5. I see it as a field goal game. It's a tight one. Ordinarily, I would never pick this game, but I'm going to take the Eagles. I'm going to go on a limb. I'm going to go the other direction from you there. I'm going to take the 3.5. I think the Eagles need to win more than the Panthers do.
I will text you if they win. If you win this bet, fly, Eagles, fly. That will be texted.
All right, my final game is the Dolphins at the Buccaneers. It's the Battle of Florida, and the Buccaneers are a 10-point favorite. And the Dolphins are really a team that is going in the wrong direction right now. The Buccaneers, I don't really feel like they've caught their stride yet. They won a big emotional game at New England, but I don't really feel like their defenses look very good so far. Again, they kind of let a rookie quarterback pass all over them last week. But the Dolphins have nothing. There's nothing there at quarterback. And I think Mac Jones, even though it's early, might be a better player than what Miami's got on their sidelines. And so it's a big line. It's 10 points. I'm not real comfortable with it, but Tampa's at home. And I like my chances with number 12 back there. I'm going to take the Bucs. I'm going to give the 10.
Yeah, not too much for me to say here. 10 points is a lot of points. But this is Tom Brady at home. It has to be relieved after squeaking out that victory in New England. Sort of less pressure in this game on them, and this Dolphin team is let's face it, it's just as much as I like their head coach and the rest of the coaching staff, for whatever reason they don't seem to have enough to compete. And I think Bruce Arians is going to do he'll still be at happy hour, heading into these games. That's for sure. Yeah. He'll still be having that early bird special. I'm sure he didn't stay late, worrying about this game, but I think, this is definitely I think like last week, I really struggled with this, Brad, which was Buffalo being favored by 16.5 points. Like I really struggled. Like I wanted to take Buffalo in that game by 16.5 points. And I did. And I was kicking myself all day because like the spread could have been 25, in that game. It was so I look at this, like, I feel like this is about as safe a 10-point spread as you could take, I think, in a game.
Yeah, the Dolphins are like a number of teams in the league that just haven't really figured out you have to have a quarterback. I mean, yeah. The Colts seem to be going through it every single year. I mean, they had the 1 year with Peyton Manning, but a little bit of time there. But there's certain teams out there that just can't seem to figure it out. That you can have a great defense, but you've got to have a guy under center in the year 2021 if you want to win big games. And this is a big game for the Dolphins because they are going in the wrong direction. That's my only hesitation on this. But I just kind of feel like the Bucs. Tom Brady is so businesslike. He put that win over Belichick to sleep, 2 hours after the game ended, and he started working on this one. And I think the Buccaneers are just a superior football team right now.
And I mean, like on the Tampa last thing on the Tampa front, like for the most part, how like quarterbacks get sacked a lot. Like Ryan Tannehill, I don't know how many times he was sacked. A lot of times, they say, well, the quarterback didn't have enough time to throw the ball. Well, no, the quarterback should have switched the play at the line of scrimmage. Should have audible, something called an audible. Urban Myers. So like they, Tom Brady is brilliant at dealing with pressure, and and it gets to the point where sometimes he's just sitting back there and there is no pressure because he's out chess matched their opponents. And so I just see, more and more of that in this game. Final game that we have there of our top 10 games worth spending some money on for week 5 of your National Football League. One of my favorites, Justin Herbert at home against the Cleveland Browns. And last week I took the Browns to beat the Vikings. That surprised Brad. I think it also surprised Brad greatly that I didn't, even bother picking the Viking game this week as well. So this is what's interesting. Yeah, that's right. North Stars. What's interesting. I'm gonna be in Dallas next week, Brad, and I'm wearing my North Star hat there when I'm there. So what's interesting is the spread on this. It's like a point and a half, and a point in favor of the Chargers. So it's almost a pick'em game, if you will. And I have to say, and I said this earlier, and I've talked extensively about the kind of quarterback that Baker Mayfield is. And I don't think the Chargers defense is really going to be able to stop Nick Chubb and the rest of that running game in a 4-quarter game. They might be able to shut him down for a quarter or two, but they're not going to shut him down for the whole thing. So that's why I think this game's going to be a little closer. And I think Vegas also feels the same. But when it comes down to winning the game, what I saw out of Baker Mayfield against, which by the way is a worse defense than he's going to be going up against in Minnesota. This is the better defense in Los Angeles with the Chargers right now. I really struggle. I struggle, even though I know it's a home game. It's the Browns' first ever home game in Los Angeles. I see Justin Herbert just having so much firepower. I think the Chargers are actually going to win by a touchdown or more in this game.
Dave, I think the Chargers are actively the best kept secret in football. And I mean that. I think after the Cardinals right now, who are riding high after a win, I think the Chargers might be the best team in football. And we look at their offensive weapons. I mean, you got an emerging young quarterback. You've got Mike Williams. You've got Keenan Allen. You got Jared Cook playing great football. You got a running back that's just running out of his mind. And what impressed me last week, I mean, other than the Raiders getting bailed out a couple times by the officials on a couple of pass interference calls, they really stifled that Raider offense for about 90% of that game. I think it's a really good football team, and I think that the Browns are coming in a little bit dinged up. Baker Mayfield's got a non-throwing shoulder issue going on right now. They still don't have Jarvis Landry. I think people have kind of figured out how to stop Cleveland. I think the Chargers are a really good football team. I'm with you. I'm taking the Chargers. I'll give that one every day, every week.
That's just so funny. Hell, I'd say Baker Mayfield has trouble with his good arm, his good shoulder, which isn't injured. The 10 yards sailing to the left, sailing to the right. Make up your mind, Baker. Which way do you want to sail? Just absolutely like the kind of mistakes you would expect a rookie quarterback to make, not a guy that is coming close to the end of his rookie contract, which is 4 years, looking for a new deal in the National Football League. I have to believe, is Case Keenum better than Baker Mayfield right now? He might be. It's not that I don't like Baker Mayfield as a leader. And it's not that he can't have the occasional just great game and pull things off. It's just the inconsistency. The Cleveland Browns should have beat the Vikings last week by at least 2 touchdowns, not just one. That game was closer on paper than you might imagine, just simply because of the inaccuracy. It was bad, Brad. The inaccuracy of Baker in that game. And it's that consistency week over week that sometimes you don't know which Baker you're going to get, which is always a challenge when you're out
My final comments before we get out of here. We both wore our North Stars caps, and I'm going to go in a different direction here. I think the reason, Dave, that we wore our North Stars caps is because the new team they're not even new anymore. The Wild, right? When they named that team the Wild, was that effectively the dumbest nickname ever for a team? It's not even an object, or it's just the dumbest. It's like a thought. It's like an idea. A Wild. I don't get it.
I was talking to somebody earlier today in Wisconsin, and he said he saw me wearing a North Star hat. He goes, yeah, so I'm a Packer fan, and then I'm a Blackhawks fan, and I had to say, why? He goes, I loved the North Stars. I absolutely loved the North Stars but when they left and they went to Dallas, he's like, it was the same story. Like everybody I talked to, same thing. Like I gave up on hockey in Minnesota. Like the second the North Stars left, I gave up on the NHL. And this guy said he just chose the Blackhawks, and he had no desire, none whatsoever, to be a fan of a team called the Wild.
The North Stars were historically a terrible franchise. They had the 1 year where they made it to the Stanley Cup. I want to say it was 1980, something like that. They had Bobby Smith and Dino Ciccarelli and a couple guys. But historically speaking, it was a terrible franchise. And what does it say about the Wild that we're still carrying around our North Stars hats?
I know.
Come on, win a series, fellas.
I have Minnesota Wild gear, which is really just North Star colors. It's not. It's like I've come around. They've been around for like 20 plus years now. So, I can't root for the Dallas Stars. And the conversation I was having earlier in the day, though, was like, at least in Cleveland, they got to keep the name of the franchise, and at least they got the Browns back in some shape or fashion. Like, where's the advantage of like the Dallas Stars? I mean, I just like, why couldn't they find a way to keep the name of that franchise in Minnesota? And if you think about it, in the National Football League, what's even worse than that is the fact that the Houston Texans are the Houston Texans, and that they're not the Houston Oilers. After the Oilers moved to Tennessee and changed their name, Brad, say, oh, we're done being the Oilers. We're going to change our name, and we're going to separate ourselves completely, but we're going to keep ownership of the Oilers name. Because
hold on a minute, Dave. Hold on. I got to stop you right there, because you are guilty of one of the greatest sins of all time on this show. Many times you've wore your Los Angeles Lakers gear in here. There is nothing more egregious than the Los Angeles. Where's their lake?
Yeah, Laker.
There's no lake in Los Angeles.
I sit there and I remind everybody. I tell them who George Mikan was. I cover Minneapolis Laker history with all of everybody when I have a chance.
Hey, when I was in my teens or my low 20s, I used to go to Tony Jaros Bar, which was in North Minneapolis. I mean, Tony Jaros played for the old Lakers. I was a big Lakers fan. I had to go to the bar.
Brad going someplace I was not able to go yet at that age. All right. Well, listen, we appreciate everybody tuning in for yet another episode of Gods of Odds. We are in season number 2. It is week 5 of your National Football League. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeVop in Northern California, wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing week.
God here, and thanks for tuning in to the Gods of Odds. For more semi-witty sports commentary, please make sure you check out Mighty.Rip. Okay, go ahead and kill the music now.